more you come into the light, the more you become aware and awaken to the truth that you are the light, then the higher your vibration becomes. And as your vibration increases, it passes the demarcation point for these latent abilities, which are inherent and engineered into your biotechnology. There are already many which are available, yet you are not yet accessing. And one of those, in the context of this discussion, is welcome, I'm Muzz iEvolv, and thank you for being here out of all the choices that you have. Please like, subscribe, share, comment on this video now. It seems YouTube doesn't really like the substance of my content, and so I'm not really being rewarded for what I'm creating. All of my metrics, as far as the like to view ratio, the views to subscriber ratio, all of those metrics, I'm like sort of 5 to 10 times what is considered the benchmark. And yet YouTube's not showing my videos to people. Really, that's what's going on. So if you can help me out by liking, subscribing, sharing and commenting, that's be very appreciated. And if you already do that, thank you. Have you read this book yet? The 3 Awakenings That Save Humanity. People love this book. If you haven't read it, I strongly recommend that you do. It's available in paperback, audiobook, and ebook, and the link is below this video. One of the unfortunate consequences of not getting my content shown to a larger audience is that without new eyeballs, I don't have any new customers. Therefore, I could really benefit from you feeling generous if you would like. So I've created a membership site. It's got 3 levels, and you receive the transcripts, the audios, and the videos of every channel I've done in the past, every channel I'm going to do in the future, just 2 quarters per day. So if you're already a member of that, thank you. And if you are not, then that's something which is available to you. It's a way that you can help me, and you'll also receive something in return. The wheels are slowly turning on my How to Channel course. So it's going to come with six bonuses, and you'll see all this when I finally roll it out. So I created the course, and then I was like, I should add that, I should add that. And so I've actually now added like 6 bonuses. So you're going to continue to hear more about that as it gets closer and closer. And on to today's topic. Are you ready for the season of miracles? That sounds so juicy, doesn't it? When this came to my head, I immediately wrote it down because I thought, wow, that sounds really cool. I'm looking forward to this one as well. Greetings and thank you for the question. Are you ready for the season of miracles? We have decided to channel on this today because, in a way, we are continuing this theme of hope. Because there are still trials and tribulations which must be passed through on this journey of humanity into the golden age. And it is going to be easier if your continuous companion is hope. Hope will always keep you anchored in some way into a conscious appreciation of the light, even when things seem most dark. And if you ever find yourself in a circumstance which seems insurmountable, and to the point where you have accepted your fate, that this will be the end of your temporary current life cycle within the illusion, then it is still possible to have hope, because you are not just the individual. You are the humanity being. It is you. You are it. And so you can still have hope for your future in this expanded concept, because the humanity being will inevitably find its way to the light in a total context, meaning that all those that are of the humanity being, that are individuations of the humanity being, will no longer be spiritually dichotomous, but will be fully, completely of the light in their understanding through the vehicle of experience what this means. And in this state of unity, darkness will have fulfilled its purpose and no longer be part of the constituency of humanity. It will become a choice that is never chosen. So, even in the most dire of circumstances, there is always hope. And the hope extends just beyond this concept that there is some type of esoteric version of me in the future which I will never have an awareness of. Because you will reincarnate and you will inherit this concept of the unity humanity being that is no longer spiritually dichotomous. You will be born into the golden age. So, this, of course, is to some degree dependent on your readiness for the ascension event. How compatible your energetics will be. If you are regularly consuming information and transmissions such as this one, and you are reading and you are following and learning from your own mentor's advice and so on, then if the quality of all of those different sources are of the light, then you are on the path. You have a trajectory that when the ascension event does arrive, in whatever form that it does arrive, that you will be in a state of energetic compatibility. This question: are you ready for the season of miracles? It is relevant because you are indeed, as a species, heading into a period which, from the perspective of where you are now, could be considered a series of miracles. But really what it will be the expression of the latent supernatural abilities which are inherently engineered into the biotechnology of the human species. Because the vibration, the vibratory quality of humanity as a whole, the humanity being, is on the rise. And it is now reaching a point where it is beginning to accelerate. And so there is this exponential quality, which is now becoming part of the spiritual evolution of humanity as we come into this final phase of the transition through the third density. And there is a great deal of capacity which is inherent in all of you, which is in the most part being underutilized. And one of those is what you see the channeler doing now. This is a capacity which exists as a latent capacity within you who is watching this now. And one of the major differences between somebody who can channel proficiently and someone who does not at all is really just the degree of ambition or the degree of curiosity and therefore consequential focus and practice in the discipline, the spiritual practice of channeling, for example. It could be many other things which are also utilizing this extra dimensionality of what it means to be a human being. But this is really the major component which is demarcating those that seem to be gifted and proficient and those that are just at the novice level or yet to even attempt these seemingly supernatural activities. And we say this because we are trying to open your eyes to the realization that you are capable in this very moment of much more than you are currently doing. And when we say much more, we're not talking about what you are achieving in your daily 3D illusory life. We are talking about what you are utilizing in your extra dimensionality. Which parts of your infinite non-physical, which are available to you, but not being utilized. So, as humanity goes through this explosion of awakening and movement into the light, which are all part and parcel, because when there is awakening, when there is access to truth, and you will very naturally move into the light, because the truth is you are the light. And so it is just an inevitability that this is what begins to occur and is occurring. Your vibration, by definition, is increasing, because this is the quality of the light. This is the vibratory tone of the light. It is a high vibration. The more you come into the light, the more you become aware and awaken to the truth that you are the light, then the higher your vibration becomes. And as your vibration increases, it passes the demarcation point for these latent abilities, which are inherent and engineered into your biotechnology. So, there are already many which are available, yet you are not yet accessing. And one of those, in the context of this discussion, is miraculous healing. To overcome illness, which the typical mainstream medicine philosophy would say is irredeemable. It cannot be healed. It is a death sentence, terminal illness. But, of course, it is engineered within you that you can miraculously heal. And not just miraculously heal, but maintain a physical state which is always healthy. It does not have to deal with any illness whatsoever. This, of course, is a capacity of the human being, including you. So, this is particularly relevant, this concept of the miraculous healing, because the garden bed has been turned and the seeds have been planted for this phenomenon to become so widespread that many of you will begin to say, what is going on? Now, if you have not joined the dots already, what we are alluding to is the medicinal activity which billions of your species participated in over the last 3 years in response to the medical emergency, which was pushed top down through all of the cultural pillars. And of course, the medicinal reaction was not something which was introduced to solve this problem, but rather the problem was invented to create the rationale and excuse that as many of you as possible would participate in the medicinal reaction and allow yourself to be part of that process where there were substances that were introduced into your bloodstream. It is becoming increasingly apparent that a small percentage of those that received this medicinal reaction are going to have dire adverse events, are going to have extreme health challenges. And many of them, as a result, will have their lives cut short. And one may say, unfortunately, cut short, but it is important to keep a recognition of this fact that you never pass over until you have decided that it is time to pass over. So, So when somebody becomes ill and they suffer and pass over, it is not that their life has been stolen from them. There is a level of consciousness and this higher self-dominion where the decision has been made that all that was designed to be accomplished in this particular life cycle has been accomplished. And the final part of the learning which one was hoping to receive from this experience will be extracted through the actual demise of the physical avatar, such that it ceases to be and the spirit leaves the avatar. So, we like to add that aside because although it may appear to be tragic, understand it is just the one playing with the illusion so that it can have a complete experiential understanding of itself. This one being, the ultimate group being, of which all other entities in existence are individuations of, including you, including us. So, it is the eternal being. And as you are an individuation of that eternal being, you also are an eternal being. Therefore, death is just part of the illusion such that you can have unique and different experiences and also have the opportunity to return back into the 3D illusion such that you can have very new and different experiences which were entirely impossible in the previous incarnation. So it is a blessing. It is a blessing that your life eventually, in the physical context, comes to an end. So, of this small percentage that had the adverse effects and are now being subjected to this phenomenon, which is the sudden death, there is going to be a proportion of those that are in this subgroup of the adverse effect, which will have complete and miraculous recoveries that will defy what modern science is saying is possible. They will come into a state of absolute and complete remission. But there will be no scientific explanation. And those of you who are aware and awake will come to the conclusion this seems to be a miraculous healing. There is no other way that it can be explained. And indeed, this is what it will be in the context of how humanity perceives what is possible now. But of course, it isn't a miracle, but is instead the utilization of more and more of this infinite capacity which is in each of you, which is now becoming awakened, which is now becoming active, no longer in a latent, dormant state. And when this begins to occur on a widespread basis, humanity, those that are awakening, those that are beginning to look at the world in different ways and beginning to find explanations which extend beyond this false narrative matrix, this very contrived and contorted and twisted version of reality, which has been deliberately constructed such that you never actually realize who you are. Humanity never fulfills its destiny. The potential of each of you is never fully potentiated, and so on. And you will begin to have an intuitive sense that there is more to humanity than we have been led to perceive. We are not the dormant, stupid, toxic, parasitic virus infection on the earth that we have been told that we are. There seems to be an element of something which is very godly, something which is very beautiful, something which is so powerful, it can perform unexplainable miracles. And as this increases, and humanity more and more, as a single being, begins to incorporate and integrate this idea that we are more than just the stupid beings which are a blight on nature, but instead something which is much more beautiful, then this will just open up an awareness, an appreciation, and an expectation of this capacity to do what seems to be miraculous. And then there will be other miracles which will also begin to be more frequent. And one of those will be the ability to communicate with entities which have crossed over. So loved ones which are no longer active in the physical avatar. The physical avatar ceased to be, and then they left the body, and then they are gone. And the general human experience has been that once an entity leaves their body, then that is it. There is never any more communication with them. Perhaps there is the occasional dream, but nothing more than beyond that. And there have been a few special people throughout history that can communicate with the dead, with the afterlife. Some of them can do it legitimately, and there are many who have done it simply because they use it as a means of authority or as a means of creating an income and so on. But with this increasing number of deaths which are now being reported in your mainstream news, is now beginning to appear in statistical data that the all-cause mortality appears to be elevated. So now more people than ever before, on an average, are leaving their physical avatar. And so there is this increase in human souls that are having the experience of passing over. And this is going to have a collective consciousness impact, because recalling that you're all the single being. And as you are moving into the light and you are elevating in your vibration and all these latent abilities are becoming activated, this is also part of the process of integrating into the single being. Each of you like a neuron in the single brain of the humanity being. And so now there is this increasing transference at a subconscious level, or rather at a higher self level, where you're all starting to transfer information with each other. And so those that are now passing over at this increasing rate and making it to the other side, having the appreciation, oh, that's right, death isn't real. Oh, that's right, this is more real than the life that I was just living. So in a way, it will be similar to awakening from a dream. The physical life that they have just lived was the dream. And when they die and then they awaken as their true self, they go, oh, okay, that's right. This is reality. That was just a temporary dream in the illusion, the 3D illusion. I had just had a life cycle. Now I'm back to the truth that I am the eternal being. And this information now is becoming more easily transferred into the world of the physical. And so it is becoming increasingly imbued into the human collective consciousness, this concept that there is an infinite afterlife. And the avatar is just a temporary designation so that you can go through another cycle of collecting experience to fulfill the divine purpose, which is to know yourself to completion through experience. So, the consequence of this is that the ultimate fear, which lays at the base of all human fear, so humanity's connection to the darkness, its exploration of the darkness, is still at its most basal level. is the fear of death. And so humanity continues to entertain emotional states and energies and conceptualizations from the darkness end of the spiritual spectrum because it is in some way afraid of its own death. But now that this increasing vibration is thinning the veil, and so the veil now is becoming more porous between the infinite non-physical, the afterlife, whichever designation you would like to give it, and the physical 3D in the context of the human experience is becoming thin and transparent and porous. And so now this information is more easily passing through the veil. And one of these miracles, which is going to become more commonplace, is the ability for each of you to communicate with your loved ones once they have passed over. So you're having this compounded layering effect where the information is seeping into the collective consciousness of your species, and also there are individuals within your species that are confirming or affirming this new awareness, this new burgeoning intuitive sense. And this will mean that there is now going to be a diminishing fear in death, because it is becoming more and more accepted, more and more intuitively felt that there is no death, that life is eternal, and that this temporary physical life cycle is akin in some ways to playing a video game. Because just as when you do play a video game, you, the player who is holding the controller, can never actually be touched or hurt or diminished or affected or anything by what is occurring in the game. You are invulnerable to all of the tragedies which befall the avatar in the game that you're playing. Just as in this life that you are living, the true you is also completely invulnerable to anything which befalls this temporary avatar which you are playing in this cycle of the game. So, with this diminishing sense of dread about death, about one's own mortality, and this appreciation that you are the eternal being having these continuous cycles by choice. They are not thrust upon you, are not forced into the world of the living, but instead you are born when you choose that you are ready for another life cycle. So, it is all by choice. Your birth is by choice. The conditions into which you are born are by choice. And also, the time of your death is also by choice, because it is a free will paradigm. So, the subsequent consequence, this following this train, this unfurling or the growing of the snowball or the unfolding of the flower, however you wish to describe it. When there is a decreasing fear of death, there is a decreasing necessity to entertain the darkness end of the spiritual spectrum. Because if you have no fear, if you have no fear of death, and you understand that you are eternal and vulnerable and immortal, then what purpose does fear serve? Of course, it is always prudent to have caution when it is relevant in the situation you find yourself in. So, being fearless doesn't mean that you make stupid, reckless decisions. It just means that you are now very free to be who you are. You're very free to step into the truth of who you are, which again increases the vibration that you emanate in this current life cycle. And you can see all of these compounding effects. This is why it begins to take on an exponential quality, because each thing compounds the next, and so you're getting this increasing return on the increase in your vibration. And you can see, when you extrapolate this path, then the inevitable endpoint is to be in a state of total and utter unity, meaning that you're in a state of total and utter understanding that you are the light and nothing but the light. So, all that you need to do so that you are included in this process, that you are gathered up in this momentum, is to live your life in a way now which is very aligned to the values and the principles of the light. And this is not something that you need to plan about the future and look into the distance. It is literally the way that you spend every individual moment of each day that you find yourself in. If each time you have the opportunity to make a choice, that choice is one aligned with the values of the light, then you are putting yourself into the stream, so to speak. So you may be aware of this concept of the Gulf Stream. So it is like the fast flow of water which is circulating through the oceans of your planet. And if a species is to move themselves into that Gulf Stream, then they are carried along by the momentum of the stream. And they can traverse great distances with considerably less effort because the momentum of the flow, the place they put themselves, is doing much of the work for them. This is a wonderful metaphor for what we are suggesting. If you start to live your life as a being aligned with the light, then you will very naturally put yourself into the Gulf Stream of spirituality, which is rapidly flowing into the light. And you will be swept up such that you are still present in this migration when the tipping point is reached and humanity crosses the threshold into the fourth density state to begin the golden age, the next human paradigm, as a unified species. Each of you, like a neuron within the brain of the single being. And then you will be in possession of the three fundamental understandings, which is that you are connected to the One and always have been connected to the One. That you are the light and nothing but the light. And that you are connected to all other individuations of your species to form the single being. And from this state of integration, of awareness, of existence as the beautiful, truthful light of what you really are at your essence, then all that arises from that is going to be heaven on earth. It is going to be what has been prophesied in many of the theologies and ancient cultures of the golden age that awaits for humanity, where there appears to be no ills, where there appears to be no violence, no suffering, and so on. Because all of you will exist in a state of total and utter love for yourself, but also for each other. And so there will be no one who will be excluded from that. Because you will all look at each other and see yourself. The integration will be literally that profound. That each individual, other than yourself, will perceive you as them. And you also in the same way. So, your acts of self-care will extend beyond just you and will include all of humanity. So, bring it back to the point where you are in your life right now. We ask you, do you believe in your Creator? Do you believe in the triumph of the light over darkness? Do you believe at your essence you are love and light and nothing else? Do you believe that any dark emotionality that you entertain, any dark thinking that you entertain, is a misconception of what you truly are, because you are a being of the light and nothing but the light. And so whenever you entertain anything, any energy, any emotion, any abstraction, any artifact from the darkness end of the spiritual spectrum, it is a misconception of what you truly are. Then it is time to begin living a life in demonstration of your faith in these beliefs, in these truths. So if you really believe these things, sincerely, honestly, earnestly, then start demonstrating your faith by living as much as you possibly can, aligned with the values and the virtues of the light. Now, at this point, it is appropriate to say that this does not mean that you start behaving as a doormat and you let all of those trample you because you feel that the expression of the light is to never say no, or to never confront, or to never challenge. And it is important to add this in here because your culture is deliberately engineered for you to be inculcated with this concept that if you're a good person, you will just allow yourself to be bulldozed. If you're a good person, then you will just allow the authoritarians to decide and dictate exactly what happens with your life. Because they are doing everything they do because they love you. Everything they do because they care about the earth, and so on and so on and so on. And therefore, if you are to resist them, if you are to challenge them, if you are to stand up and say no, then you are a bad person. Then you are all of the epithets which are casually and typically thrown at anyone which takes a stance alternative to the mainstream false narrative. So, if you are willing to be living in a state of faith to the virtues and values of light, and also take that to mean that it is in some way your responsibility to stand up and say to the darkness that this is far enough. You'll encroach no more. Then begin doing it. Begin living in this way. Begin being part of the humanity being now. Start living each moment not just for the avatar you find yourself in this very short current life cycle, but from the expanded context, this expanded self-identity, that you are this larger being which has now crossed time over many millennia. And you have left and you have re-entered and you have left and you have re-entered, but this single being has continued to be, has not ceased, it just rolls through time. And this is a very valid definition of who you are, because you are many beings at the same time, because the fractal nature of the one is the ultimate group being. And then there is very large group beings embedded within the one, and then there are smaller group beings within that, smaller group beings within that, smaller group beings within that, until eventually one of those group beings is you. And you are a group being because you are comprised of many trillions of cells, and each of those cells has some capacity for individuality. It has some of its own individual consciousness, and all of those accumulatively comprise or contribute to the larger consciousness, the larger group being, which is you. Let us finish in this way. Look about your reality more and more for miracles. And if you look for them, you will begin to notice that they are increasing in number. And now, regular people are starting to talk about miraculous things that happen in their lives. And initially, for some of you, there will be a sense of, that's just not true. But when you hear it more and more, increasingly, you'll begin to have the intuitive sense that something is going on here. Something tangible and real is taking place. Because I'm hearing more and more and more about miracles, and to the point where it's not just on a internet video. I am now beginning to hear people that I know, or people I know that know people, or people in my own family that are having miraculous things happen to them. And the initial layer of these miracles will be miraculous healing. So, keep an eye out, be aware, integrate this into your understanding of what is locked within the human potential. And allow this to buoy you with a sense of hope, and buoy you with a sense of your own burgeoning capacity. And let that be an excitement, let that be the fuel which powers you to be more conversant, to be more explorative, to be more in a state of utilization of these latent capacities. Because that desire, that ambition will very naturally direct you towards the light. Because this is where they are unlocked, in the light. The higher your vibration, the more aligned you are with the light, then the more supernatural you are going to become. Until eventually, miracles will be something that you perform yourself. You will be the miracle worker. And all that you need to do to be part of this experience, this very exciting final phase of humanity's now accelerating, rocketing, blasting towards the singularity of ascension, is live in the light now. In each moment, act in faith of your belief in all these fundamental truths of who you are and why you're here and what it all means. And if you can do that, then your life will be rewarding even more than you can imagine from all the experiences that have passed before. That moment of stepping off the cliff into the abyss where you exist entirely on the ethereal updraft of the light. Thank you, and we love you.